Good morning. We are coming into our fourth module. See, there is a mistake in the screen. It's module 4, electronic media and film. So, in the previous module we have discussed print media, right? And after the invention of print media, we know we had invented electronic media like radio, television, film, etc. So, in this chapter, in this module, we are just discussing things like radio, television, etc. And let's see what is the first electronic media. Obviously, it is radio, right? After the expansion of print media, there was an invention of an electronic media, radio, right? Radio it's much more entertaining, that gives an interest to the listeners when compared to the audience of a newspaper, the readers of a newspaper. And a radio program can be prepared more creative than a newspaper report. So let's see what is a radio. I don't need to explain much more about radio. I know because the term radio, the device is very much popular to all of us. Even though, let's see what is the history of radio. Radio is one of the most important means of communication. Millions of people depend on the radio for news and other programs. And the probability and the low price of mass produced radio set have contributed to the popularity to this medium. You know, when we were discussing print media, newspaper, I told you that the reason for the one of the reasons for the popularity of newspaper is it is very cheap, right? That is an advantage of newspaper. We can buy a newspaper with the cost of a tea. So, after the invention of radio sets, after the development of after the development in the invention of this radio, the price of this radio set has become very low, and that was the main reason for the popularity of radio. Even a poor common man can buy a radio set. You know, when you are looking into the shops, especially tea shops in the rural areas, there we can see a radio set. And when we are comparing the number of radio sets with the number of televisions, the number of radio is high because it is very cheap, and it can give the programs that is like informative. Radio, like many other inventions, developed from the theories and experiments of many people. So many people had tried to invent the radio, and it was in 1895 that Guglielmo Marconi, an Italian inventor, sent the first radio communication signals through the air. So Marconi has invented the radio set that we have seen now, and it was in 1895, and in 1901 Marconi's radio equipment sent radio signals across the Atlantic Ocean from England to Newfoundland. So in 1901 Marconi's radio that sent radio signals across Atlantic Ocean from England to Newfoundland. So that was an expansion in this invention. This radio equipment can send its wave into a wide area, right? And later, experimental radio broadcasts began in 1910 in the US. So after Marconi's radio, United States also started an experimental radio broadcast. Experimental. And regular radio services began in many countries in 1920s. And after these experiments, after the experiments that had taken place in different countries, in 1920s, radio has become a popular medium. Okay. Now let's see what is the situation of, or what was the situation in India during these 1920s in the case of radio. See, development of radio in India. The first radio program in India was broadcast by the Radio Club of Bombay in June 1923. So it was in 1923 Bombay Radio Club or Radio Club of Bombay started its first radio club, and they had broadcast the first program in 1923. And radio clubs were formed in Calcutta, Madras in 1923. After Bombay, we had radio clubs in Calcutta and Madras in 1923 and 24 respectively. Okay, in 1923 we had a radio station or radio club in Calcutta, and in 1924 there was one in Madras. And it was followed by the setting up of broadcasting services that began broadcasting in India in June 1927 on an experimental basis in Bombay and Calcutta. So in 1927 there was a regular broadcasting service from Bombay and Calcutta. It was in experimental basis. And in 1930, see, Indian Broadcasting Company handed over the Bombay station to the government. You know, the Indian Broadcasting Company had handed over its Bombay station to the government of India, and after receiving the company, it was renamed as Indian State Broadcasting Service. Okay, so government renamed the Bombay radio station like Indian State Broadcasting Service, and later it was renamed as All India Radio on June 8, 1936. And there is no change in the name. Still we are listening to radio programs from All India Radio. It is owned by Government of India. You might have heard our Prime Minister's Man Ki Baat, right? all these things, the broadcast related to government are broadcast to through All India Radio. So All India Radio is the official radio station of government of India, and it was handed over by Indian Broadcast Company. Then transistor was invented during World War II. Transistors. This invention set the tone for popularization of radio around the world. Transistor is the radio set or radio equipment that we are using now. I just show you the old type of transistor. This is an example for transistor radio, an old type. So the invention of this transistor led to the expansion or popularization of radio sets. When people can use it in their home, they can take it home, they can take it wherever they go. This is the transistor type mode. Transistor mode, radio. So the invention of transistor made the radio popularized throughout the world, and shortwave transmission began in India in 1938. It was soon followed by launching of the External Service Division of All India Radio in 1939. So this was the development of radio in India. And now let's see what was the situation of radio after independence. See, radio in the post-independence era. At the time of independence, the All India Radio Network had only 6 stations located at Delhi, Bombay, Calcutta, Madras, Lucknow and Tiruchirappalli, with a total of 18 transmitters. Right. We had only 6 radio stations at the time of independence. And 18 transmitters were used in all these 6 radio stations. Transmitter is an equipment that can receive and sends radio signals with an antenna. It's an equipment, transmitter. So only 18 transmitters were there at the time of independence, and we had only 6 radio stations. And the target audience of these radio stations was urban listeners, the people from town. They were the regular listeners of radio, because the common people cannot afford a radio at the time of independence, I think so. And the number of radio stations are very less, and the programs will be very less. So the number of listeners who are depending radio, they were from urban areas. Urban listeners. The people from town, they were the regular listeners of radio during that time. As against a mere 275,000 receiving sets at the time of independence, today the number would be countless, taking into account the radio sets and the mobile phones that provide radio services. And during that period we had only 275 radio sets at the time of independence, and against this number, the number of radio sets we have now is countless. We cannot count it in number, because for every person who are using a mobile phone, an Android or any mobile phone, they can make use of a radio. Right. So the number of radio sets is countless. We cannot count it in number. That much radio sets are available here now. So this was a change. This was a transition from the time of independence to today. And the broadcast scenario has drastically changed with 197 stations. We have now 195 stations, and with 305 transmitters which include 145 medium wave and 55 short wave and 105 FM transmitters, providing radio coverage to 97.3% of population. The change is drastic. There is a change in the number of radio stations. The transformation is from 6 radio stations to 195 stations in India, and the number of transmitters also changed, right, from 18 transmitters to 305 transmitters, in which we had 145 medium wave, then 55 short wave and 105 FM transmitters, and these all transmitters providing radio coverage to 97.3% of our total population, right. So this is the change in the case of radio programs. Then radio is a widely used mass communication medium, and it has great potentiality in disseminating of information and providing education and entertainment to millions of people. No doubts in it, right? Radio is providing entertainment programs, information, education, news to the millions of people. With the advent of transistor, as I told you, the invention of transistor was a revolution, a twist in the radio, and this advent of transistor radio reached the common man in urban and rural areas of India. This movable type of radio. See, even in every tea shops we can see a radio set, right? Because that invention of this transistor made the radio popularized throughout India. Even we are using we can see radio sets in villages as well as in towns. This has become a common thing. Radio has become a common thing. Radio has become very cheap. However, optimum use of this medium is made by the rural population, as their access to other media is limited. So, the maximum usage of radio sets are in rural areas, in village areas compared to other areas like townships. You know why? Because the people from the village, they don't have much access to other medias like television, internet. So they are sticking to radio programs, right. It has advantages over the other mass media like television and newspaper in terms of being handy, portable, easy accessible and cheap. Here we have some advantages of television. See, it is handy. We can handle it in a simple way. It is portable, it is movable, easily accessible and cheap. Okay, it is the most portable of the broadcast media, being accessible at home, in the office and the car, and on the street or beach, virtually anywhere at any time. So among this electronic media, this radio is a most portable media. We can take it to the office. We can take it home, and we can take it to the playground. Wherever we go, we can carry a radio. So this is a most portable electronic media. Right, we cannot carry our television when we are going, wherever we go. So, and radio as a mass medium has great relevance in a country like India, even amidst overwhelming presence of television and the new media. See, the relevance of radio in India is very important. The vast majority of rural population in India has no power supply, and as such their access to television set is limited. You know why radio sets are more relevant in India? Because majority of the rural areas in India, you don't look into Kerala. When we are looking into the northern states, there we can see a lot of rural areas which has no electric supply. There is no electricity, so they cannot depend upon television or internet to know information, to know news, and to get entertained. At the same time, the radio set can be powered with a battery, right? So they can use the radio set in their home even they don't have any electricity. And All India Radio's programs continue to be the only source of information and entertainment. So for the majority of the population in our country, All India Radio's programs are their resort for entertainment and information. So this is all about radio at the time of post independence era. അപ്പോൾ ഇന്ന് നമ്മൾ അടുത്ത 4ാമത്തെ മൊഡ്യൂളിലേക്ക് കടന്നിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നു. ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് മീഡിയ, അതുപോലെ ഫിലിം, ടെലിവിഷൻ, ഇതൊക്കെയാണ് ഇവിടെ ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. അതിൽ ആദ്യത്തേത് റേഡിയോ ആണ്. റേഡിയോയെക്കുറിച്ച് നമുക്കറിയുന്ന കാര്യങ്ങൾ തന്നെയാണ്, എന്നാൽ പോലും ഒന്ന് ഡിസ്കസ് ചെയ്തു. നമ്മുടെ മാർക്കോണിയാണ് റേഡിയോ കണ്ടുപിടിച്ചിട്ടുണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. മാർക്കോണി അങ്ങനെ ആദ്യമായിട്ട് 1895 എയറിൽ റേഡിയോ സിഗ്നൽസ്, കമ്മ്യൂണിക്കേഷൻ സിഗ്നൽസിനെ കടത്തി വിടുന്നത്. അതിനുശേഷം അറ്റ്ലാന്റിക് ഓഷ്യൻ കടന്നുകൊണ്ട് ഇംഗ്ലണ്ടിൽ നിന്ന് ന്യൂ ഫൗണ്ട് ലാൻഡിലേക്ക് റേഡിയോ സിഗ്നൽസിന് അദ്ദേഹത്തിന് കടത്താൻ സാധിച്ചു. പിന്നെ US-ൽ ഒരു എക്സ്പെരിമെൻറ്റ്, പരീക്ഷണാടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ റേഡിയോ ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റുകൾ ആരംഭിച്ചു. അതിനുശേഷം 1920-കൾക്ക് ശേഷമാണ് ലോകമെമ്പാടും റേഡിയോ സ്റ്റേഷനുകൾ വളർന്നു വന്നിട്ടുള്ളത്. ഇന്ത്യയുടെ റേഡിയോയെക്കുറിച്ച് പറയുകയാണെങ്കിൽ, ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ആദ്യത്തെ റേഡിയോ ക്ലബ്സ് അല്ലെങ്കിൽ റേഡിയോ ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് റേഡിയോ ക്ലബ് ഓഫ് ബോംബെ 1923 നടത്തിയ ആ ഒരു ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് ആയിരുന്നു. അതിന് ശേഷം കൽക്കട്ടയിലും അതുപോലെ മദ്രാസിലൊക്കെ റേഡിയോ ക്ലബ്സുകൾ ഉണ്ടായി. അതിനുശേഷം 1927 ഇന്ത്യയിൽ ഉടനീളം പരീക്ഷണാടിസ്ഥാനത്തിൽ ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റിംഗ് സർവീസുകളൊക്കെ ആരംഭിച്ചു. 1930 നമ്മൾ നേരത്തെ പറഞ്ഞ ഇന്ത്യൻ ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റിംഗ് കമ്പനി അവരുടെ ബോംബെ സ്റ്റേഷൻ ഇന്ത്യൻ ഗവൺമെൻറ്റിന് കൈമാറി. അതിനുശേഷം ഇന്ത്യൻ ഗവൺമെൻറ് അതിന് ഇന്ത്യൻ സ്റ്റേറ്റ് ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റിംഗ് സർവീസ് എന്ന് പേരിടുകയും ശേഷം ഓൾ ഇന്ത്യ റേഡിയോ എന്ന പേരിലേക്ക് മാറ്റുകയും ചെയ്തു. ഇതാണ് ഇന്ത്യയിലെ റേഡിയോയുടെ ഒരു ചരിത്രം എന്ന് പറയുന്നത്. മാത്രമല്ല, ഈ ട്രാൻസിസ്റ്ററുകളുടെ കണ്ടെത്തൽ, ട്രാൻസിസ്റ്റർ എന്ന് പറഞ്ഞാൽ നമ്മുടെ മൂവബിൾ ടൈപ്പ് റേഡിയോസാണ്. അത്തരം റേഡിയോയുടെ കണ്ടെത്തൽ ഈ റേഡിയോയെ വല്ലാണ്ട് പോപ്പുലറാക്കി, റേഡിയോയെ ചീപ്പാക്കി. അതുകൊണ്ട് തന്നെ ലോകത്താകമാനം റേഡിയോ പിന്നീടൊരു വലിയ പോപ്പുലർ മീഡിയമായിട്ട് മാറി. ഓക്കെ, ദെൻ ഇന്ത്യയിലെ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യാനന്തര റേഡിയോയുടെ കുറിച്ചാണ് പറയുന്നത്. നമുക്കറിയാം, ആകെ 6 സ്റ്റേഷനുകളും 18 ട്രാൻസ്മിറ്ററുകളും ഉണ്ടായിരുന്ന ഇന്ത്യ സ്വാതന്ത്ര്യ സമയത്ത് 2,75,000 റേഡിയോ സെറ്റുകൾ മാത്രമായിരുന്നു ഇന്ത്യയിലുണ്ടായിരുന്നത്. അതിനുശേഷം പിന്നീട് അങ്ങോട്ട് എണ്ണാൻ പറ്റാത്ത റേഡിയോ സെറ്റുകളും 197 റേഡിയോ സ്റ്റേഷനുകളും അതിൽ 305 ട്രാൻസ്മിറ്ററുള്ള ഏകദേശം 97.3% ആളുകളിലേക്കും റേഡിയോ കവറേജ് എത്തിക്കുന്ന ഒരു സംവിധാനത്തിലേക്ക് നമ്മുടെ ഇന്ത്യൻ റേഡിയോ വികസിച്ചു എന്നുള്ളതാണ് പറയുന്നത്. മാത്രമല്ല ഈ റേഡിയോ എന്ന് പറയുന്നത് റൂറൽ ഏരിയയിലെ പോപ്പുലേഷനാണ് കൂടുതലായിട്ട് റേഡിയോ ഉപയോഗപ്പെടുത്തുന്നത്. കാരണം അവരെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ടെലിവിഷൻ, ഇൻ്റർനെറ്റ് പോലെയുള്ള മറ്റു ഇലക്ട്രോണിക് മീഡിയയിലേക്കുള്ള ആക്സസിബിലിറ്റി കുറഞ്ഞതുകൊണ്ട് അവർക്ക് റേഡിയോ എന്ന് പറയുന്ന ഒന്ന് ചീപ്പാണ്. രണ്ട്, അവരെ സംബന്ധിച്ച് ഇന്ത്യയിലെ മെജോറിറ്റി ഗ്രാമങ്ങളിലും കറണ്ട് ഇല്ലാത്തത് കാരണം കറണ്ട് ഇല്ലാത്ത സമയത്തും പ്രവർത്തിപ്പിക്കാൻ പറ്റുന്ന ഒരു ഡിവൈസ് എന്ന രീതിയിൽ പല ആളുകളും ഇന്ത്യയിൽ റേഡിയോയെ ആണ് ഡിപ്പെൻഡ് ചെയ്യുന്നത്. ഓക്കെ, ദെൻ അതിനുശേഷം നമുക്ക് പറയാനുള്ളത് ഓൾ ഇന്ത്യ റേഡിയോയുടെ പ്രോഗ്രാംസുകളൊക്കെ ഇപ്പോഴും ഇന്ത്യയിലെ എല്ലാ ഇടങ്ങളിലേക്കും ബ്രോഡ്കാസ്റ്റ് ചെയ്യപ്പെടുന്നുണ്ട്. ഓക്കെ, അപ്പോൾ ഇത്രയും കാര്യങ്ങളാണ് റേഡിയോയെക്കുറിച്ച് പറയാനുള്ളത്. ആൻഡ് വി വിൽ കം ടു ദ റിമൈനിങ് പാർട്ട്, ഫ്യൂച്ചർ ഓഫ് റേഡിയോ, ഇൻ ദ നെക്സ്റ്റ് ക്ലാസ്. താങ്ക് യു.